Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMScast. My name is Chris Badgett, and I'm joined today with a special guest, Gavin Zuklinski from Acuity Scheduling. He's the founder of Acuity Scheduling, which is a software tool for scheduling and making appointments. And we're going to get into all that. But first, thanks for coming on the show, Gavin.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here.
This is a real treat for me to just kind of hang out and spend a little time with another software entrepreneur. And I know some of the things we face and is just similar in that way. So we'll get into some neat use cases and trying to serve the people to the best of our ability and use technology to solve business problems and this kind of thing. So we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to drop a lot of scenarios on you and just kind of go deep on a couple of topics around scheduling, appointments, coaching, e-commerce, and really get into how to automate all that. But before we get into that, what is your elevator pitch about Acuity Scheduling? Where does it sit in the space? What do you say at a cocktail party?
That's a great question. So Acuity Scheduling is an online tool to help small businesses offer and manage appointments online. So it's really focused on people whose day-to-day revolves around appointments or who really intend to make money around appointments. It's not just for, making it easy once a month to chat with somebody over coffee, but really for people who care about their brand, who care about making money, and who really care about the professionalism of the product too. So yeah, there's a lot of different things out there, and it ranges from things from glorified contact forms where it just lets you pick a date and a time and pretty much nothing else, to crazy things to help you manage a staff of 50, 100 people. So we sort of sit in the sweet spot right between there for people who really do care about, branding and everything, and automating, connecting with a lot of tools. I think we're gonna probably dive into a bit more, and to just want to add that professional touch and really make it to be something where they can step away a little bit from the logistics of their business and focus on what they really enjoy instead.
That's really awesome. I know my first contact with the scheduling problem was just when I first started freelancing, building websites online, working with clients in different time zones. It's just a problem that does not scale well at all, and it's very inefficient. So what was the genesis for you? Why? I just understand it, and the education entrepreneurs listening also understand it, in that there is an origin story for why they chose the business or the course or the membership that they chose. Why did you choose scheduling?
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned the problem too, because I talk to a lot of people who are just sort of accepting of all the difficulties of scheduling because it's been something that they've been doing for so long with a paper notebook or whatever, and it's just something ingrained in them that they don't really think about as a problem. And that's where it began too. My mom is a massage therapist, so around 2007, I created Acuity Scheduling for her after seeing her just go back and forth with clients. And whenever somebody needed to cancel an appointment, hearing them complaining about their kidney stones and blah, 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 and way too much back and forth. And it wasn't the thing that made her happy. Going back and forth to try to pick a time with somebody isn't something that actually, made her better at her job. So that's where Acuity came from. And it was something where just sort of put it online 2007. It was a side business, and then in around 2013 it had just grown slowly over that time, where I was developing it as a passion, and it eventually got big enough where I had to choose between that and my day job, and then chose Acuity. And then since then it's been amazing, the amount of growth. It's gone from just people like my mom, massage therapists, to just tons of different businesses, like you're saying, coaches, people teaching classes, from large hospital networks doing classes there, to individuals just wanting to manage their one-on-one coaching calls and consulting calls as well. So it's been really fun to see things progress over the years in ways that I had no idea that I would have ever expected when starting out.
I'm just curious, when you started, did you focus on the massage niche specifically, or did you immediately start with just small business in general kind of thing?
So I definitely did not anticipate it being as useful as it was, because I started out in general thinking, well, I could see this being useful for a lot of folks besides massage therapists. So I don't want to just focus, like narrow it down onto them because I see a lot of overlap. But I didn't think that there would be as many different types of businesses. Like going into it, I expected, maybe counselors and things. And then after lawyers signed up, I was like, oh yeah, lawyers make sense. Honestly, I had no idea what life coaches, business coaches, and those types of folks were, that existed as a profession before I started Acuity, and then saw those types of folks come on in droves too. So it's been unexpected. And then we still have random ones that surprise me every day too. There was one that, that signed up the other day. It was one where you can get like helicopter rides over a hog farm and shoot a machine gun. I was like, this is not something that I expected. And like cupcake delivery and cat cafes and everything else. It turned out to be a really surprising thing. Maybe if I were to do it again, I might just focus on a specific vertical, because after you don't and you start hearing all these different requests, there's a lot of commonalities, but there's also a lot of differences. And thankfully, over the many years that we've been doing it, we've had enough time to sort of like hone in and find all the overlaps to make it something like really useful. But it has taken a lot of years and a lot of experience and a lot of talking to people to try to get to be to that point.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we get the same experience. We come across online course subject matters that I never would have thought people teach about. But
what's been the most surprising one for you?
Oh, there's just so many stuff about just how to use different types of technology. Lots of interesting relationship related courses. I'm trying to think. I'll come back to it when one of the like really exotic ones pops in my head, but
okay. I'm really wondering what the commonalities are between our users and yours. I know that we have a bunch, and I'm sure that there's some interesting ones in there too.
Absolutely. And it's the same too, like in the sense that there's like the more of the small business solo operator, or someone's trying to build or already has built an online kind of university. So the software, has to be able to help that, solo operator, but then also help, the larger school deliver courses. And it's pretty cool, as I'm sure you see with your software with Acuity Scheduling, that, sometimes it's really nice to see an entrepreneur come in. They start with one, and then as they grow, they start using more of your features. Maybe they have to upgrade their plan and whatnot, but you're like, you've anticipated what they needed, and you're just there with them as a technology partner on the journey, which is it's a great feeling when you just really fit well with a customer. So
yeah, and I love seeing that too, where somebody comes and they really they start out just wanting to make scheduling a little bit easier, or just like send reminders to clients, and then they start to dive in, they start to like customize things for their brand, and like they start like having them fill out forms in advance, just so they can get a better idea for what the client is going to need whenever they come in. And then they'll get out in, and we'll start to see them doing like more advanced things with payments, offering packages and subscriptions and all of that, and then start to get into the different integrations. And then slowly it goes from something that was just forms to like something where it helps to automate a lot more of their business. And then especially, so that's like growing on the technology side, and then also growing on like the business side too, where we've definitely seen that where people start out with just themselves, their business is successful, and then they start hiring a couple people more on staff, upgrading their plans to go along with it. And then all of a sudden, like different features that they didn't think that they would need at first, like reporting, breaking down between different staff and all of that, you don't really need when it's just you. But once you get a couple more folks, then all of a sudden they're really interested in that, like how to divvy up tips between people, and how to like manage staff in different time zones and all of that too. So yeah, it is really fun to see that change over time too.
Well, let's come back to that time zone problem. I think it was really around 2008 when the whole online coaching and information product industry really started to rev up, and continues to grow quite a bit since then. But those were kind of the early days, I think. And business in general, with the internet, with, tools like Skype, GoToMeeting, Zoom, these, whether you're doing coaching and things of that nature, or just communicating overseas about whatever your business is, or you have vendors, suppliers, all kinds of different time zones, and we live in a globalized world. And as I see more and more people running into the time zone problem, I feel like it's taken me a decade. I'm pretty good at it now. Like, oh, okay, I'm talking to somebody in Sydney. That means we're going to have these issues on Friday, these issues on Monday. If we're actually going to want to meet with each other, it's going to be in my late afternoon, whatever. Like, I know how to do the math, but man, it was painful. And, having tools like Acuity Scheduling for time zone management is it's just so key, and it relieves so much bandwidth. And depending upon your personality type, some people just cannot calculate time zones. So I'm with
you. I personally can't do time zones.
Yeah. How did that come into play? Because a massage therapist, a brick and mortar business, they're usually operating in the same time zone. But when did the time zone come into the picture for Acuity?
Yeah, exactly. And going into it, like you were saying, with the origin of it, you don't expect everything that's going to come about. Time zones was totally one of those where I didn't really anticipate the number of businesses who just operated out of different time zones. And that's really increased. We're about a 50-50 split right now between brick and mortar, everybody in the same time zone, and people distributed all over, from like multiple people on staff in different time zones, handling clients all over the world in different time zones. So yeah, it was really early on that we started doing time zone support. It was probably about 2008 or 2009, where we got to the point where you could have clients in different time zones all throughout the world. And that has been amazing because, like I said, I cannot do that in my head time zone thing. I definitely rely on something like Acuity, because when it comes down to like daylight savings time and everything else and all the quirks that go along with that, it gets real confusing real fast. So the way that Acuity works is we'll actually do a bunch of technical things to try to ask the person's browser, what time zone are you set to, automatically detect that, they can verify and change it to, and then just show everything to the client in their time zone. They don't even have to think that the business is in a different one. And you as the business owner, you see everything in your time zone. You don't have to think that the client is in another one. Like, we'll show you and everything just that but really, like, all your notifications, everything synced up to your calendar is all in your time zone. So it completely eliminates that type of confusion and back and forth. And we definitely see that still around daylight savings time, where, say, Europe and the United States, which you're usually at roughly the same offset, except for a couple weeks a year when daylight savings, we switch at different times. And then we see people sort of, question it, and we're like, nope, totally makes sense. You can double check this on timeanddate.com or whatever, or even just different countries around the world that changed their daylight savings. Like, there was Egypt just kept going back and forth for a while about, yeah, we're going to do it, no, we're not, with a couple days notice. So yeah, it's fun. And it turned out to be a much bigger problem, but one that I feel like with a technical solution, it just completely eliminates it from your head, so you don't even have to think about that, and you can focus on the more important parts of your business instead of adding and subtracting hours.
Yeah, that's huge. And I just want to add Arizona in there on the top of all that, because they have, I think they don't honor one of them, daylight savings.
Oh, yeah, it gets more complex than that too, because there's Arizona does not do daylight savings, and there's a lot of confusion between that and people outside of there. But then there's an Indian reservation inside of there that does, and then there's a subset of there that does not observe daylight savings time on that reservation.
Oh, so wow.
It's confusing.
but hey, you've handled that. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to get into some scenarios that the people listening, if they're building courses and membership sites, when they think about their business model or what their offer is, how that might look if they use Acuity. So let's say I sell an online course, which means I have some protected pages and lesson content that's protected that the public can't see unless they buy the course. And let's say inside lesson 1, I say, I say to people, like, as part of the offer before they bought it, I said, okay, if you buy my course, you can schedule an unlimited number of 30-minute calls with me over the next 8 weeks. I'm inside, I'm designing my course. How do I make that happen with Acuity from inside the lesson 1 content? What can I do?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different ways we see people do it. From the basic side of that is inside of Acuity, you'll sort of set the hours that you want to accept appointments. You'll set up your different types of appointments. And one of the things that you can do as you're setting it up is just mark it as private inside of Acuity. That means from our side, people on the general interwebs, they can't see it at all. And then you could, on the easiest thing, just we'll give you a link to that thing, a secret link that only people with that link can use to schedule. You'll post it into there, and then people can click that, see all of the times that are available. We keep things nice and private, can deconflict it with your Google Calendar and any other events that you have going on too, so you never get double booked. And they can just schedule from there, pretty simple. So that gets to be really fun too, especially if you're, say, a coach and you have, I don't know, you do like free initial consults, and then you do some paid ones, and then you want to give people, say, like in the class that are enrolled, free access to those one-on-one consults that are normally paid, something like that. You can totally hook that up the same way as well too.
Wow, that's awesome.
Or even if you wanted to, beyond just putting a link, like I said, I'm really big on, putting your brand forward and making you look professional too. You can embed the entire scheduler. If you're able to add a little bit of HTML, you can embed that whole thing into your own website or into the course private area too. That way people can book directly from inside of your site without going anywhere else. And then we'll take care of still all the availability reminders and everything else that goes into it.
Which is really incredible because LifterLMS is a WordPress-based learning management system, so it's easy to just flip the content over to the text view, and you can just copy and paste in whatever your embed code is, and it's really that simple. Or like you said, sometimes you would just prefer to have a link out to your Acuity site, a secret link that they can schedule with. That's awesome. Let's talk about. Let's say I have a different business model. Let's say I have a free course. So I'm, and a lot of people are joining it. And my business model is built around just having an upsell inside the course where people can buy coaching sessions, and it's an unlimited amount they can buy. What are my options in that case? And I want to use Acuity to sell the coaching sessions. What would I do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you could do it the same way inside of Acuity. You can set a price onto your sessions. You can set Acuity to hook up to your payment processor of choice. Right now, we support PayPal, Stripe, Square, Braintree, Authorize.net. So a bunch of different options. And anyway, when somebody goes to book their appointment, you can, again, if you wanted to give a discounted price, you could say, like, create a coupon code inside of Acuity that gives them a % or a dollar or whatever type of discount, and share that just with your students, and that way they could go and book, or charge them full price if you want to, who cares. And yeah, then when they go to book their appointment, you can have them pay directly within Acuity as part of the booking process. They're required to pay to be able to book and reserve their time. Or if you wanted to get a little bit fancier too, you can start to upsell in different ways. Just have like charge them a deposit, or I think, like we chatted about a little bit, start to do packages of appointments too, and have other ways to try to upsell them inside of Acuity also.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Well, let's go. I know there's some power users out there, some people who are going really big. So I'm going to lay out a more complicated business model that people build with LifterLMS. And let's talk about how to make the magic happen by combining it with Acuity Scheduling. Let's say I offer a course and then I have various upsells, but eventually I get it to a course plus private coaching plus group coaching. And I'm going to take care of the selling with LifterLMS, which basically means I'm going to create an access plan for the course that comes with all these other benefits. So I've taken care of the selling part. I have private areas where I can put in the one-on-one coaching scheduling links, and I can leave that unlimited, or I can do packages. But this group coaching thing, I don't know how to figure that out. What have you seen people do in terms of group coaching? And I know you have a Zoom and GoToWebinar and Join.me integration. Like, how can they make that group call happen and this whole scheduling part of that?
Yeah, so we definitely see that from our side where you want people to have like a certain, like get even more complex. Like you can have 5 one-on-one sessions, but I offer them like every day of the week. So there's a ton of times available. And I want you, like, I might offer like 15 different times for group sessions over the next month, but I only want to let you be able to schedule at like at most 3 of them. So anyway, to start out on the basic side, you can, for the one-on-one sessions, we sort of covered that where you set your availability, create the type, and then people can just schedule within there too. Similarly, for group sessions, we have classes and group events that you can offer where you can set up that type of appointment and then choose exactly when it's offered, how many people can go into that one appointment time, and then we integrate with a whole bunch of different, say, video conferencing things to automatically set up meetings. Or what we see a lot of times too is you can customize the emails. So if you
Like the
wanted to do,
reminder emails? Is that what you mean?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So as soon as somebody books an appointment, you could tell them, like, hey, make sure you prepare for these 3 things for the group call because we'll be going around in a circle and like making everybody talk about their challenges over the next year or something. And then you could set up reminders too, like, hey, make sure you've prepared about all those things and like have a webcam too, and like this is the link to our Zoom that we're going to have, and you could even have that generated in there as well. And yeah, and then all of this leading up to the appointment too. And just that people could book into the group class. We'll manage all the reminders and everything, and we'll also make sure that people can't over enroll in the class. If you only wanted 5 people, or if you wanted 500 people allowed in the class at once, you can enforce that through Acuity to make sure that people schedule. And then getting on to like the more complex side too for packages. If you wanted to say offer 15 different times that group sessions were available, but only be able to book 3. You can do that through packages where you can give each person a special unique code that they can use to be able to book, and then they'll need that code to be able to book their appointment, and then that will limit them for the number of times that they're able to redeem also. So that's a great way where you can sort of enforce all of these things automatically without having to police what all of your people are all of your students are doing as well.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. I just remember in our Facebook group yesterday, somebody was asking for that exact solution, and I did not know the exact place to send them. But now I know. I'm gonna, after we finish this episode, I'm gonna email him about Acuity because he was having some package issues and wanted these certain constraints, and it's exactly what you offer. So
Oh yeah, we hear these types of things a lot, and it definitely is not the most common case. So our support is fantastic too, especially for some things that like start to get a little bit more complex. You got all these extra business rules and things going on. Like we find every business is totally different. It's hard to create help docs and create the UI for everybody when everybody is so different. So that's why we have an awesome support team of folks all around the world to quickly be able to respond to all of your questions too. So yeah, if they want, even before they try to commit to, just send them over to our support end, and we can make sure that we can actually do what they're looking for also before they invest too much time. Pretty sure we can. It sounds like it's a pretty good fit, but I always like to save folks more time if we can.
that's awesome. Yeah. So for any of you listening, that's at acuityscheduling.com. What does Acuity mean? Or where does that name come from?
Oh man, yeah. So Acuity, I like the word like that vision clarity type of thing. I forget the exact definition, but like clarity with that. And honestly, I just really liked how the word sounded.
The
At
first
first,
time
like,
I heard it, I remembered it. Like I never had to hear it again.
really?
Yeah, it's a good name.
Uh, Yeah, well, thank you. We find some people have a hard time spelling it. So that's Acuity, scheduling.com. And actually, before this, I had a web development company that was called Acuity Innovation, and that's where it came from. Then created a scheduling product. So obviously, it was Acuity Scheduling. Uh, Yeah, and then it sort of just stuck from there. But yeah, also after this, I'll set up a link for your listeners also that they can go to acuityscheduling.com/LMScast. So that's ACUITY scheduling.com/LMScast for a couple of extra links and how to get in touch with myself or our support too, and a extended trial offer also.
Awesome. We really appreciate that. Thank you. I want to get into some more of your interesting use cases because the audience here, they get into interesting use cases. I think we've kind of covered the Join.me, the GoToMeeting, and the Zoom integration, which is great. But you have this other kind of power feature where in one of your higher level plans where you have the BAA for HIPAA compliance. What is that all about?
Oh yeah, and this one too, as you start to get into the medical space, is extremely important. So, like
And we do have a
counselor,
lot. We do have a lot of
therapist.
people teaching or coaching in medical or areas. So that's why I bring it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this is in the United States. There's the HIPAA laws, which require certain levels of technical, administrative, and physical safeguards around how your staff is trained, security of like your physical premises, be able to offer promises and be able to sign agreements that you'll be able to do certain things for businesses too. And it just falls under this. It's a ginormous area that we've had to go through a lot of effort with third-party auditors and everything else to make sure that we comply with like the high standards of security and compliance with this too. So in general, in the United States, if you're a medical practitioner, you're accepting insurance, you're probably pretty familiar with this already. And it's something that we offer because of all the rigorous audits and everything that we've had to go through for it, and a lot of the technical safeguards and the administrative overhead with it. That's why it's offered only on our highest level plan. But we're one of the few schedulers around that do offer something like that too. So you can start to schedule and manage your clients if you have to in like that sort of sensitive HIPAA environment.
Wow, very cool, very cool. What about FreshBooks? Like, if you have the ability to sell, why do you integrate, or how does the invoicing system integration work?
Yeah, so yeah, for invoicing, we do FreshBooks, Zero, QuickBooks, and we see these in a couple of different cases. Sometimes you'll have, I don't know, say like an intro call where you maybe it's free or maybe you have a base price and then things can go on from there and people will invoice outside of there, or you'll just use it for your internal accounting practices too, where you're using FreshBooks and you want to keep track of, you know, people who you invoice manually, who are maybe you're doing some sort of project work for, and those that you're also accepting appointments for. So that's just a great way where we'll start all the invoices for you and try to manage them too, depending on what the person purchased inside of Acuity, what they paid inside of Acuity. We'll apply those payments to your invoices also. Yeah, and it's a great way, sort of along the vein of I'm trying to make Acuity something to help automate all of those logistical things that go into appointments for you. It's one of those things that we see a lot from people is that every time somebody schedules an appointment, they'll like automatically want to draft up an invoice and put in the payment on there and send it to them so that they have it for their records. Or if they don't want to accept payment through Acuity and want to give people more flexible payment terms like that, they would be doing this really repetitive process. So we're there to try to help automate it and either do everything automatically for that or just kick it off so you can take it away on your own and add all of those extras that you've chatted about during your call that you had scheduled with them.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. Well, let's dial it back. I don't know if it's the same with you, but sometimes I spend a lot of time talking to people, advising them on how to simplify the direction they're heading. Like, when it comes to scheduling, what are some, or setting up you got to put in the work up front to set up, okay, these are the days I want to be available. I have clients all over the world, so I'm going to put some stuff here and here. I'm going to do an upsell over here to packages or whatever. But what are some general, just if somebody's designing their scheduling system and using Acuity for that, like what are some best practices? How do you help people get clear on things or avoid mistakes, like not blocking off the weekends or something like that? Like what are some of the some key tips for people?
Yeah, and it sounds like your listeners are generally a little bit more tech forward too. So usually if you have an online calendar already, iCloud, Office 365, Exchange, Google, any of that, you can sync that all into Acuity, so that way we'll be able to deconflict your schedule. So anything that you have blocked off inside of there during your available hours, we'll make sure is blocked off from appointments too. So that really helps with double booking. And then we'll also send appointments over there too, so it can act like a pretty seamless way, and you can keep managing your schedule the same way through your calendar, and just have people automatically entered in there when they schedule. So then inside of Acuity, we spent a lot of time trying to be able to let you model your availability however you want, but on the basic way, you can either set sort of the same hours every week. If you know roughly what your schedule is, you can set up those hours. So Monday, you're only available from like 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. Your local time, Tuesday, blah, 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 keep going forward with that. Or what we see a lot too is people have lives outside of maybe what they're using Acuity for. You've got a day job, something else. You don't know what kids are always coming and going, and you don't know what your schedule is going to be. So if you want, you can just change it, and we make it pretty easy that you can just click on a day to set the hours within there too, and you can change that all the time. But I think those two things together, I definitely recommend. If you have an online calendar, number one, sync that up. That way everything is deconflicted. And then two, figure out the best way to represent the hours that you're available. If you've got a regular weekly schedule, just put that in there. If you don't, then set it a couple days at a time. We do set a lot of limits too, like when I use it personally for appointments, I don't really know what my schedule is going to be more than 2 weeks in advance. So I'll say, no, more than 2 weeks in advance, you can't schedule with me online. And that way I can get a majority of the time scheduled, and I can make exceptions for people as I need to. But yeah, putting in those types of limits. And then the other thing too is I'll say, I personally don't like when people cancel or reschedule at the last minute, so I'll prevent that, say less than 12 hours in advance too. That way you can have a little bit more certainty with your schedule going forward, and setting those types of limits is really good when you start out, so you have things synced up. We're already blocking off when you're already having events in there. You set the hours to times when you're pretty confident that you're available too, and on top of that, you're setting the range, sort of how far in advance and how close to the future too people are allowed to schedule or change things. That way you can prevent a lot of the last minute things, or having somebody book you on Christmas because you forgot because it's only July. So that helps eliminate a lot of that potential confusion as well.
That is awesome. That is really cool. That's a gold mine of tips. A lot of those lessons I learned personally the hard way. I remember doing a client project on Thanksgiving because I didn't have a scheduling system dialed in. So like I totally I can totally relate. So if you're listening and you're setting this stuff up, it's all about you. It's all about what you need. It's all about your boundaries, how you want your work days to go, how when you want to be available, when you don't, and just outsourcing that heavy lifting of calendar management and scheduling management, because I feel like what your software does, if you're a very busy person, it saves so much time, money, effort. If you have an assistant, your assistant's going to be doing more meaningful things than back and forths and just manually doing the things that your software does automatically. So I'd encourage everybody to head on over to Acuity Scheduling and check that out. Last question of the interview. I understand that Acuity Scheduling has over 50,000 people in it. And you said it started in 2007, which means you've been around for a while, and it's a healthy business, and you've stood the test of time. What do you think is the secret sauce of the success of Acuity? And I can tell you're passionate about it, you enjoy it, you love what you do. But what is the secret behind the company, or what is the brand all about?
Yeah, so Honestly, it was a side project, so it had to be something that I enjoyed doing. And especially when I left the day job that I really loved, to be able to do Acuity in 2013, I wanted it to always be something that I could enjoy doing and have fun doing. So that's been it. Because to be able to stay with something for 10 years, that initial excitement, anything is going to wear off. So you have to enjoy the day to day in the business. So I've had to do an extra effort to try to make sure that I spend every day, working on something that I love, creating something for people who are really going to appreciate it, and just having fun in the company too. And that has been what has kept me going.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what was that link again if people want to go check out Acuity?
Yeah, absolutely. acuityscheduling.com/LMScast. That's ACUITY scheduling.com/LMScast. And I'll put in a couple of notes about appointment scheduling on there, and then also a special offer so that you can get an extended 45-day trial instead of our normal 14-day one if you sign up through there also.
Awesome. Well, Gavin, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time and sharing your experience. And it's also just a lot of fun for me to geek out about some situations of what our customers, our shared audience are trying to do. Because we care about their problems, and it's fun to get into like solving business problems with technology. So thanks a lot for coming on the show, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
Excellent. Thank you for having me on here again.